stupid, ignorant, dumb bastard. I've met some dumb bastards in my time, but you outdo them all. Get over there.
This is the Keith Hanson Show. No holds barred.
You've never been out of college. You don't know what it's like out there. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.
Using his head, speaking from the heart, and telling it like it is.
Isn't this an indictment of our entire American society? Well, you can do what you want to us, but we're not going to sit here and listen to you bad-mouth the United States of America. Gentlemen!
The Keith Hanson Show.
Oh, have I got your attention now?
On WNTK and WUVR.
Can't you see I'm easily bothered by persistence?
9:07, welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Keith Hanson Show. Great to have you along on this Tuesday morning. Got a great show coming up for you. Just a little bit, we're going to be joined by author Dan Wos. He's the nationally recognized Second Amendment advocate and spokesperson. Author of a book called Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical, and Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. It's a couple of books that expose all the lies and the tactics of the anti-gun radicals. And I'll tell you, if you think things have heated up, especially with the extreme risk protection orders, bump stock bans, magazine bans, I think you're going to see things start to get a lot worse before they get better. And again, I have always asserted that at the core of the gun control argument, well, just shave the gun off, and it's about control. It's not about the fact that they don't like guns, because they don't like the people that have them. They don't like people like me having the ability to say what it is that I say and not having the ability to do anything about it. It's all about control. So we'll get into that here with Dan in just a minute. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Bill Weld. Boy, I'll tell you something. This guy, first of all, here's a pro tip. If you're going to announce that you're going to make a presidential run, at least if you're not a chronic alcoholic, then hire a makeup artist to at least eliminate what makes you look like you just came off of a 5-day gin bender. Bill Weld putting out a video that announcing his run for president. Again, here's a you want establishment. Here you go. Here's a guy who is establishment. This guy couldn't make it as a libertarian vice presidential candidate, which, I mean, let's face it. I mean, as a running mate with Gary Johnson, Gary Johnson's a guy who didn't even know what Aleppo was. Remember that famous little gaffe, for lack of a better term. Well, he formally announced his candidacy for president yesterday, becoming the first Republican to launch a primary challenge against President Trump. And guess who he's got as his campaign manager? Jennifer Horn, former New Hampshire GOP chair, the infamous Never Trumper. You know, the one who blamed Republicans for the losses during the 2018 election. If you remember that infamous op-ed. It was that op-ed, actually, that made me jump into the ring for the chair position, because I was so disgusted by what I saw. Bill Weld is not a conservative. Bill Weld is no friend to a conservative. Bill Weld is no friend to the Republican Party. Now, some of you may say, hey, listen, you know, Trump isn't. Listen, I'm not here to debate whether Trump or Trump is not. I don't believe Trump is a conservative. I understand why Trump has had allegiances with Democrats. That's what happens when you're a real estate developer in a predominantly Democratic region. You donate money to people's campaigns to make sure that you've got friends in the inside so you get things done. It's how business works. It's the envelope of cash underneath the apple pie. If you remember the Shawshank Redemption movie, you'll understand the reference. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's ethical. It's not illegal in certain instances. But it's how things get done. Bill Weld is not a conservative. Bill Weld may be running on a Republican, but I mean, what this guy believes. If you remember, a couple of months ago, he compared Trump's immigration policies to Kristallnacht, the 1938 Nazi rampage that destroyed Jewish synagogues and businesses. he's a moderate at best, who also endorsed Barack Obama in 2008. Endorsed Barack Obama in 2008. And in 2016, he declared himself a libertarian for life. I'm a libertarian for life. He left the Republican Party to become the Libertarian vice presidential nominee. We had another guy who used to do that. His name was Charlie Crist. Charlie Crist was a Republican who then became an independent, who then became a Democrat because the Republicans were fed up with him and the independents didn't want him, and so he eventually jumped into the Democrat camp. I guess when you're rejected, when your own party basically says, nah, you know what, we've had enough of you, you need to go away, that's when you become a Democrat. I used to always, in Florida, would affectionately refer to Charlie Crist as carrot cake, because that's what he looks. The fake tan, orange skin, with that little crop of white hair. He looked like a slice of carrot cake. Well, I'll tell you something. It's a joke, but you know what? So were his policies. Not exactly a good governor, and not exactly a good congressman. And it was actually interesting what happened when he left the governor's office. He went on to become an ambulance chaser attorney for the largest ambulance chaser attorney in the entire state of Florida, John Morgan, which if you have lived or worked or have been down in Florida for any length of time, you start to cringe because you cannot escape from John Morgan's radio, television, billboard ads. I mean, this guy advertises on taxi cabs. He's the epitome of an ambulance chaser, largest single dollar donor to Obama, and huge advocate of legalization of pot. Also a habitual traffic. He can't drive anymore because he's a chronic drunk and beats his wife. And that's not just speculation. I mean, that's a long-standing thing down there. So the Charlie Crist, when he gets beaten out of the governor's office, who does he go and work for? Goes and works for John Morgan. Birds of a feather, as the saying goes. Well, it'll be interesting. You know, I was talking with Tom Squitieri this morning from Talk Media News, and the question came up about whether or not former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld would face Donald Trump on a debate stage. I think that would be wonderful. I think it would be amazing. I don't think Bill Weld would fare too well. I don't think Bill Weld even realizes or understands what Bill Weld stands for. I think this is just one more. And again, this is just one guy's opinion. You can take it or leave it. I look at Bill Weld and I see an opportunist. I see an establishment guy. And again, going back to what is an establishment guy? Well, what does it mean to be a part of the establishment? It means that, first and foremost, you must maintain relevance. He has 8 kids and 8 grandkids. He's got a posterity to look after. And so, hey, you know what? If he can keep his name in the political realm, then, you know, might be good for him. Maybe he can score a political analyst position with MSNBC or CNN. I'm pretty sure Fox News doesn't want him. This will be interesting to see what happens. He's stomping around the Granite State right now. I was going through social media earlier, and I was trying to think. There's some event that he's got coming up, but in any event, we'll let you know if there's any Bill Weld events that are coming up. But I mean, listen, he's a Republican. He wants to come on the show. We'll come on the show. I mean, I'll ask him the tough questions. I'm not afraid of that. But I'd really like to see what the policies are that he thinks that he's going to somehow implement. It's not about implementing policy. Let's be honest about this. It's all about just riding the anti-Trump wave, but on the air fingers quote Republican ticket. I don't put any stock in this guy, and to be honest with you, I don't think that he's going to get anywhere. His campaign, he'll flounder. He won't make it past the primary, so he'll get beaten out in the primary, and you know. But at least it keeps his name on the forefront. It keeps his name on people's tongues. He's the guy who's going to go up and challenge Trump. It's going to be an abject failure, and he's going to make an embarrassment out of himself. But hey, you know, at least his name stays in the paper. He maintains his relevance. That's what is most important when you're an establishment guy. 9:16, you are listening to the Keith Hanson Show on WNTK and WUVR, 99.7 FM, 98.9 FM, and 1490 AM. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dan Wos is going to join us, the nationally recognized Second Amendment advocate and author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical, and also the follow-up to that book, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. It's going to be a great conversation. Hopefully you can stick around for the entirety of that conversation. We'll be right back after this.
Wouldn't it be great to see your windows in a whole new light? Do it right. Call your local neighborhood experts. Budget Blinds. You'll get beautiful style and personalized service for every budget. We bring the showroom right to your home, so you can choose from hundreds of blinds, shades, shutters, and drapes, plus smart home window coverings you control with the touch of a button. And with Budget Blinds, we do it all for you. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. There's a reason why Budget Blinds is the #1 provider of custom window coverings in North America. When we say we have style and service for every budget, we really mean it. So let's get your home a whole lot of gorgeous. Get your free consultation right at home. Just go online to budgetblinds.com or call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS. Call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS for your free consultation right at home. Now that's beautiful. At participating independently owned and operated franchises only. Ask for details.
Hi, my name's Richard Osborne. I own Osborne's Marine. When I was growing up, I used to take my boat and drive it down to the harbor and spend my summers being a pest to my dad, I'm sure.
The Osbornes are no strangers to Lake Sunapee. It's been a family tradition for generations, and they're making sure the joy of the water is passed on to their children.
I usually try and get my boat in before the ice is out so we can go out and crash through a little bit of ice in the spring just to entertain the kids.
Though we may not all be as ambitious with our boating season, it is time to start thinking about your first outing and getting your boat prepared.
It's good to get your orders in ahead of time and let us know when you want your boat so that we can plan ahead, get any parts ordered that might need to be put on before we get ready to put it in the water.
And what do they do for this pre-season checkup?
We double check all the fluids from where we filled it in the fall, go through all the systems, make sure everything's ready to go, start it up, test it.
Osborne's Marine, family owned for generations and committed to ensuring you have a season of fun on the water. Here's the contact details.
Our phone number is 763-0152. We're also at osbornesmarine.com.
Good morning, Em. Coming to the shop today?
No time, Daddy. I have guitar lessons and gymnastics right after school. Then, of course, homework.
Oh, okay.
But can you make sure one of the guys gets the bumper for the Smith's SUV done and set? They'll be picking it up today. Gotta run, Daddy. Love you.
Love you, too.
Daddy, I'm glad I caught you. The Wheeler's Honda that came in yesterday has been all written up. We worked direct with the insurance company, got the rental, and now if you just make sure the job gets started, that'd be great.
The Wheeler's Honda. Right. Got it. Where are you off to in such a hurry?
Gotta catch the bus. Meet Tiffany at school to go over the port. Then after school, I'm straight out. Love you, Daddy. See you tonight.
Hey, Dad, let's shake it.
Nick, my little buddy. What's happening today, bud?
John's showing me how to run the paint booth.
Oh, yeah? Now that sounds like some kind of fun. Can I tag along?
Sure, Daddy. But don't you have other work to do? I'll be pretty busy.
Oh.
JAS Auto Body, Route 14 in White River Junction. When you get a ding, dent, or damage to your car, rely on Toby, Pete, and the rest of their great crew. JAS Auto Body, where your family first.
It's time to hit the road and take a much-needed break from the busy world. But what do you do when something's wrong with your camper? Don't worry. Call LJ Hunt RV Service and rest easy. LJ Hunt RV Service works on all makes and models of campers. They'll repair water and tree damage, interior and exterior. They can make repairs to furnaces, water heaters, wiring, plumbing, charging, the works. They'll work with your insurance company. And best yet, they come to your location. Visit their new location at 804 Old Concord Road in Henniker this spring and ask about their RV rentals. Call 603-717-4011. 603-717-4011.
Call Keith now at 603-526-9464. Make your voice heard.
Sweet smell of a great sorrow lies over the land. Plumes of smoke rise, merge into the leaden sky.
9:20, you're listening to the Keith Hanson Show on WNTK and WUVR, 99.7 FM, 98.9 FM, 1490 AM, and streaming around the globe at WNTK.com. My absolute, positively all-time favorite band, Pink Floyd, off of the Momentary Lapse of Reason album, Sorrow. Fantastic song, great opening riff, and unfortunately didn't have a chance to see it live, but there's a high def. If you go on YouTube, if you're a Pink Floyd fan, go on YouTube and do the Live at Pompeii Pink Floyd live at Pompeii. They did a concert in Pompeii. And filmed the entire thing in high-def video. And the laser show, the smoke show, the just absolutely incredible and phenomenal live version of Sorrow with that fantastic Dave Gilmour opening guitar action. All right, we're going to get right into it here. My next guest, I figured as soon as I saw him available, I said, I got to get him on the program because this is going to be a great conversation. Dan Wos, a nationally recognized Second Amendment advocate and spokesperson, author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical, and then a follow-up to that, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. See, the problem is that you have all these anti-gunners who love to fabricate lies about firearms. And again, ultimately, this isn't about gun control. It's not about gun control. It's about control, and it's about control of people that they don't like who own guns. It's also not about them not liking guns because there's an awful lot of leftists that own guns. They just don't like the fact that people they don't like have the ability to own guns. And that restricts their ability to impose their controlling tactics on people like me and also like Dan. So without further ado, Dan Wos, great to have you on the Keith Hanson Show. Thanks so much. Welcome.
Keith, thanks so much for having me on the show. And you'll be happy to know that I'm not coming off a 5-day gin bender, and I don't have a fake tan.
Oh, you were listening to the opening monologue. Awesome. I am not a Bill Weld fan by any stretch of the imagination, and I absolutely, viscerally despise the woman that is behind his campaign, former New Hampshire GOP chair Jennifer Horn. She is, along with Ray Buckley, proof that snakes can smile. Ray Buckley, by the way, is the New Hampshire Democrat Party chair who has avoided me for 1,162 days now. Yes, I actually do keep track.
Because you're a smart guy and he knows better.
Well, they won't debate. They absolutely will not debate. They'll pivot, they'll obfuscate, they'll name call, they'll, everything else, name calling and ad hominem attacks and all those good things. But when it comes down to actually, hey, listen, put your money where your mouth is, my time, my dime, any place, anywhere, you can have your little group of harpies with computers Googling things. I'll sit there with my copy of the United States Constitution and I will kick your butt every time. They won't debate me.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and that's the stuff that I talk about. It's because there's a different ideology on the left. And I know sometimes we're even talking about Republicans, but that liberal mentality, it's a different mentality than those of the conservatives. And let me give you kind of an example of the way I see it. On the left, we have people who want rules, regulations, restrictions, laws. They want this controlled, structured environment because to them that feels safe. Mm-hmm. There's no responsibility there. They can, it's always somebody else's fault, the government, their parents, their professor, their boss, whoever. So, but on the right, we have people like us, conservative-minded people, who say basically, get the hell out of my way. I'll do what I want, when I want, and nobody's going to tell me how to think. And it's the difference between people on the left who want and the thing is, they don't want to control you as much as they want to be controlled. Because the problem is, people on the left they want that structured environment where we on the right want freedom. That's the difference in the ideologies. It's so scary because they're pushing laws, like gun laws, with respect, in particular, that are putting everyone in danger because they want government to take care of them. Mm-hmm.
And I think also to it, it boils down to an opportunity for with the control comes the power over people's lives, but it also comes with at a price. There's a value to them.
Right.
And one of the things, I know you don't listen to the program on a regular basis, but one of the things that I've said many, many, many times before is that cultural warfare is necessary to the survival of the Democrat Party. They create victims. They argue everything based upon who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed, who are the
Absolutely.
Victims, because they can now pander to the people that they've identified as victims. They go in and they say, whatever shortcoming you happen to be experiencing, using at this point in time. And that's not any fault of yours. That's the fault of this other group of people who are oppressing you. It's also the foundation of social justice warriorism. So here's what you're going to do. Give us money so that we can launch campaigns, and then when we get into, and then vote for us. So that way there, now you might not be able to seek compensation or justice in a court of law, either through a criminal proceeding or through being made whole through a civil proceeding, but we will use the mechanisms of social justice to impose our own sentences after convicting these people in the court of public, or these organizations in the court of public opinion. That's basically the game plan right here.
Well, absolutely. And with respect to the gun conversation, the strategy that they use, that's the most powerful strategy, is they'll use these people we're talking about, they use their fear and hate against them. So what they do is they'll implement this irrational fear of guns, and they'll push it, and they'll propagate it, they'll use the rhetoric, and they'll do all the points and all the things they need to do to make people who don't know any better scared to death of guns. And then they'll also make those same people angry and hateful toward gun owners, toward the NRA, toward anything gun-related. So now they build in this cocktail of fear and hate among their voters.
Mm-hmm.
Really, is what it comes down to, and that's how we end up with this irrational left-wing view of firearms in this country. And it's a scary thing. So what I talk about is, how are we going to change that narrative? How are we going to bring it back to an honest gun narrative? And that's what I'm out there doing. And I see you're doing the same thing.
Well, what do you see is the biggest? What is the biggest opening for the undermining of the Second Amendment? What avenues can they take to really get in? I mean, I guess let's look at it like a breach in the dike. Okay, yeah. You get that, and it's insidious, because once you open up that little bit of a crack, once you wind up getting a breach in the integrity of a case around, it's change blindness. It boils down to a concept called the doctrine of the inevitability of gradualism. It's slow and steady change. You don't even realize that things are being changed. Right. But, it's just a little piece of legislation. Well, we're not going to ban your guns. We're just going to. Well, we're going to just restrict your magazine capacity down to 10 rounds. Now we're not going to ban your AR-15s. We're just going to say that you can't have a forward grip, or that you can't have a bayonet lug, or that you can't have a pistol grip. And then slowly but surely, again, think about it this way. Okay, when you look at the amount of restrictions that are now on the Second Amendment, or any of the restrictions that are on society, not just we could take it outside of the gun argument. When you look at the number of restrictions that are on society today, if you went back 50 years from today and wrote a book, 50 years you took a time machine back 50 years, wrote a book about what today's life was like, you would be described as a dystopian novelist.
Yeah. You know what? You asked the question. What's the opening? Where do they get you? Where do they get them? It's in the term gun violence. Now, gun violence, the term, is at the core of their fear campaign. And the truth is, there's no such thing. You and I know this. There's no such thing as gun violence. It just doesn't exist. What they don't want to talk about is the real problem of human violence. Mm-hmm. Because you see, if the left were to talk about human violence, they'd be shining a spotlight on their failed policies, the things that cause human violence: open borders, sanctuary cities, rampant pharmaceutical drug use, welfare dependency, violent Antifa-type groups, all these things that cause violence in our country that they support. They don't want anyone looking at the real causes in our country of human violence. So what they do is they tell you it's all because of guns.
Right. I'm actually really, really happy, Dan, that you brought up the pharmaceuticals, because this is something that I don't know if you know Dan Roberts or not. Dan Roberts writes for AmmoLand.com, and he's been a guest on the program quite regularly. And he and I have had a number of discussions about this. As you're aware, I teach federal tactical counterterrorism and active shooter response. In addition, I'm also a subject matter expert, and I've written a number of training curriculums specifically on workplace violence. And one of the things that I've talked about many times on this program and in other arenas is the direct connection between selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, these mood-altering, mood-stabilizing antipsychotic medications, and the instances of violence. And National Institute for Justice, Department of Justice, FBI statistics, 96% of the mass shootings that have taken place in this country since 1985 have been perpetrated by individuals who have extensive histories, specifically with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. But yet nothing is being discussed. In fact, I get more angry, nasty hate mail and death threats when I bring that up from people who are outraged at the fact that I would somehow suggest a connection between SSRIs and mass violence. And I am doing more than just suggesting. I am saying statistically, and these aren't my numbers, I'm not pulling these numbers out of my hat or out of any other orifice in my body. This is DOJ, NIJ, FBI. 96% of mass shootings in this country have been perpetrated by people who have had extensive histories of receiving and being medicated with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Nobody wants to have that conversation.
Yeah, no, you're right. Nobody, and Dan Roberts is the guy to talk to. This is not necessarily my expertise, my area of expertise, but it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure this out. Exactly what you're talking about. You just have to look at the results. These people, these kids who are going crazy and killing their fellow students and things, and you can easily tie it in with drugs that they're either taking or are all of a sudden off of them. So my question is, why in the hell is everybody on drugs? This wasn't like this, when I was growing up. It just wasn't, and now everybody's on drugs. You can't turn on the TV without seeing some commercial from some pharmaceutical company telling you that, well, if you got a crick in your neck, well, we call that this, and we have a drug for it. Anything that they can do to get people on drugs, it seems to be what they're doing, and it's not helping.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, now you've got, school systems like, and of course this is the most egregious case, but the Baltimore School Board votes to ban officers from having guns in schools.
Yeah. Well, that's not the only one. Where I live in Saratoga Springs, New York, they just took armed security out of the schools after 30 years of no incident. This is the school board, anti-gun school board. I've been going to meetings and yelling and screaming at them and saying, what the hell's wrong with you? After 30 years of no incident, the kids were protected just fine with armed security. They decided in their anti-gun left-wing view that, well, we shouldn't have that anymore. And now those kids are put in potential danger with no armed security. It's unbelievable.
Now, but again, you see, here's the thing, though. I draw fire from this all the time, but I will double down and triple down on this. That Democrats love standing on piles of dead children because it gives them opportunities to turn those dead kids into money and votes. It is disgusting. It is morally reprehensible, but they do it. And unfortunately, there are enough stupid people out there that are more than happy to digest the narrative that gets pumped forth.
Exactly. Gun grabbers do not want to save lives as much as they want to ban guns.
But is it the banning guns, or is it the banning guns from people they don't like? Because,
that's exactly it.
Now, we got to look at the hypocrisy here, okay? So police officers are bad, they're evil because they're jackbooted thugs. They're authoritarian enforcers from the federal government who are dedicated to using implicit bias to mow down black and brown people in record numbers. But yet only the police should have guns. So which one is it?
Here's the thing. It's the people who vote for these politicians, the anti-gun politicians, are so confused. Let me try to give you a quick example. You got an anti-gunner in a mall. A terrorist comes in, starts shooting the place up, tells everyone to get on the ground. Now, while the anti-gunner's on the ground, he sees a guy like you. He sees Keith Hanson jump around the corner, pull a gun out of his belt, and guess who just became that anti-gunner's new best friend, rather. Mm-hmm. It's you. It's the guy with the gun. So you ask the anti-gunner, you say, which position would you rather be in? Face first on the ground begging for your life, or have a gun to be able to protect yourself? And at this point, they usually see the logic in being able to defend themselves. So then you ask them, do you think malls should be gun-free zones? And what do they say? They say yes. because they can't think this topic through. They know they should have a gun to protect themselves, but they also want the gun-free zone because they've been scared to death. And it's all due to propaganda and angry anti-gun rhetoric.
Well, it's interesting too, and I remember there was a tweet that came out. It was a series of conversations that were being had between myself and a bunch of other people. You know how Twitter, how the Twitterverse goes crazy. And one of these people said that basically that the gun the gun was owned by a person who basically had small male genitalia.
And that's what they like to say.
Yeah, and that if what are you afraid of? And so somebody else in the conversation had said, well, the gun is there in case somebody, decides to break into my house at 2:00 in the morning. This Yahoo's actual response was, rather than shooting the guy, why don't you sit down and have a conversation about why at this point in his life, really? So somebody breaks into your house at 2:00 in the morning. They want to sit there and have a conversation about how bad their life is, how their parents and society and everybody else screwed them up, how they failed to make appropriate choices in life, and how all of the events in their life have led up to them committing an armed home invasion at 2:00 in the morning. They're going to sit down and have a conversation with you, Joe homeowner. Boy, I hope those rose-tinted glasses don't get accidentally knocked off your head as you're having your skull crushed in.
These people cannot see this conversation with logic because they've been so indoctrinated with fear and hate toward guns and gun owners. They just can't see it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to explain to people how they're being misled, and most of the time I just get anger. They just hate me for it, but because they don't want to see the truth. They don't want to see how they have to do mental gymnastics to make these points that they try to make. The conversation, sit down with the killer in your living room and grab him a cup of coffee and have a conversation with him. Yeah, that's going to work. But they don't see it logically because they've been so indoctrinated with fear and hate of guns.
Well, what I want to do is we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dan Wos is my guest, by the way, nationally recognized Second Amendment advocate, spokesperson, author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical, and a follow-up to that, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. Take a quick break. Dan, when we come back, I want to get into those top conversational topics. Let's go through those. And what I'd like to do is to have you, if you could, propose some ideas on how the average person can overcome some of those seemingly gotcha questions that the anti-gunners love to throw at people. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right. Sure. Hold on one second. I'm going to bring you right back here. 9:38, you are listening to the Keith Hanson Show on 99.7 FM WNTK, 98.9 FM, 1490 AM, and streaming around the globe at WNTK.com. We'll be right back. More with Dan after this.
At the Montshire Museum of Science, discover the science and the art behind making and playing musical instruments and the special exhibition, Making Music, the Science of Musical Instruments. Experience 28 interactive exhibits and 30 demonstration videos showcasing 34 different musical instruments, 14 of which you can play. Learn more at montshire.org.
This ad brought to you by Louie Louie, serving award-winning wood-fired pizza, fresh salads, homemade desserts, and more. Voted Best of New Hampshire. Family-owned and operated since 1991. Powerhouse Mall, West Lebanon.
At Sugar River Bank, we know you're busy. You wake up, brush your teeth, get the kids up, take a shower, do all the things you have to do to make yourself presentable, do all the things you have to do to make the kids presentable, and fed, and off to school, and finally you get to work, do your job, then you do everything in reverse, or some other version of hectic modern life. And in the midst of all this, you deposited your paycheck, made an online banking transfer, paid 2 bills, and sent your amazing friend, lifesaver, babysitter the weekly lunch money, all from your mobile phone and laptop. All because Sugar River Bank has your back. We're the hometown bank that can help you no matter what your schedule, no matter where you are. With mobile banking, remote deposit, MyPay person-to-person payments, basically everything you need financially to make your life easier. It's what we're here for. It's what we do. Sugar River Bank, your hometown bank. Member FDIC, with 6 convenient offices, always online at sugarriverbank.com, and always on your phone or tablet. How can we help you?
Does your jumbo arm need fixing? Harbor One Mortgage is offering an aggressively priced 30-year fixed-rate jumbo for primary and second homes. Borrow up to $2 million for purchases or refinances. Contact Peter Jennings at 603-865-5686 for more details. Or email pjennings@harborone.com, NMLS 333292. Harbor One Grantham Branch, NMLS 254998. Lending in New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Equal housing opportunity. Again, that's 603-865-5686.
Keeping your medication straight can be challenging. At Colonial Health Mart Pharmacy, our medication packaging system makes that challenge a whole lot easier. We will package all your prescription and over-the-counter medications in one easy open packet. No guessing, no sorting. We work with your doctor to ensure that your prescriptions are always up to date and the best choice for you. If you have a question, we're just a phone call or text away. Call our helpful pharmacy staff and tell them you'd like your prescriptions packaged today. Colonial Health Mart Pharmacy, caring for you and about you.
I told my copywriter I wanted a new radio ad for spring roofing jobs and to tell people the early bird catches the worm. He told me that was lame and I should stick to roofing. This is Jeff Acker from HP Roofing, and you know what? He's right. He doesn't tell me how to hold a hammer, so I shouldn't tell him how to write. But if I don't tell you to book your roofing now, ain't no early bird gonna get my word. Sorry, he wrote it. Just call us today for a free consultation.
Call HP Roofing at 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
We're cruising over here at Sweet Bee Market. As always, we're stocked with seasonal local veggies like fresh spring greens, sourced from valued local farms like our very own Sweet Beet Farm. Get inspired for summer with seeds to plant and books to guide you. Find it all here at 11 West Main Street in Bradford.
Your opinion counts. Join the conversation now at 603-526-9464.
As you look around this room tonight.
9:41. You're listening to the Keith Hanson Show on WNTK and WUVR, 99.7 FM, 98.9 FM, 1490 AM, and streaming online at WNTK.com. Joining me on the WNTK Newsline, author, nationally recognized Second Amendment advocate, and spokesperson Dan Wos, author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical, and follow-up to that, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2, Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. Again, Dan, it's great to get you back on the program. And so I want to get into the actual meat of this, which is what are some of the common gotcha questions? Because, you know, when you debate a leftist, a liberal, a progressive, a communist, a Marxist, a Bernie bro, whatever you want to call them, they're very quick to try to throw out these gotcha questions that they think that it's going to stumble, you're going to stumble, it's going to trip you up, and then they just sealed the deal, they won the debate. What do you typically see, and what are some good ways for the average person when they're having a conversation with friends or family or coworkers that involves an anti-gunner? How can they overcome these?
Okay, well, I can give you many of them, but I'll give you just a couple here. The first thing to understand is that they think they're smarter than you, and they think they're morally superior to you because that's what they've been taught. Okay, that's what's behind the whole justice warrior thing. It's a higher level of intelligence and it's a higher moral superiority. So understand that much first going in. That's what they think. Then they'll talk about gun restrictions. Okay, they believe that more gun restrictions will reduce violence because remember they're moral and they want to save the little children. So when they talk about gun restrictions, what I usually say is something like, well, okay. First of all, the reason they want gun restrictions is because it's a political win as well. But I'll say, okay, on one hand, we have criminals who want to kill people. And on the other hand, you're offering, let's say, a magazine capacity restriction. Do you, Mr. Anti-Gunner, really expect intelligent people to believe that someone who's willing to kill in cold blood will not exceed a bullet limit? Mm-hmm. And they usually don't know what to say because you're putting out the fact that it's a killer. It's a cold-blooded killer, and you're trying to stop him by telling him he can only have 10 rounds in his magazine. So it's placing logic and the truth against their delusional solution. Another one would be about gun-free zones. They really do believe that gun-free zones, so what I ask them all the time is, okay, so if your moral compass tells you that it's okay to bus hundreds of children into a building every day, keep them there for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Take away all forms of armed security, and then post a sign that tells the killer and that everyone inside is unarmed and helpless, then you should really go back and reevaluate your morals because you're not quite there yet.
Now, I mean, to us, I think a lot of us would look at it and go, okay, well, we'll just draw a comparative rebuttal to that and say, okay, well, hey, listen, if gun bans work so well, then why don't we ban all of the other ills of society? Let's ban drugs. Let's ban murder. Let's ban rape. Let's ban, anything else that we determine to be poisonous and detrimental to a proper society. And how well does that work?
Right, exactly, and the fear around this so-called assault weapons is really got them in a place where they are scared to death of anything that might resemble an AR-15 or anything like that. So one of the things that's funny, and you know a heck of a lot more about this than I do because you're the gun guy, from what I understand. So what I will ask them, though, is, these assault weapons you're talking about, there's so many different definitions. Some say they're automatic. Some say they're semi-automatic. Some will have a pistol grip or a scope or a muzzle brake or an extended magazine, as they call them. Mm-hmm. So what I'll ask the gun grabbers is, just so I know what we're talking about, just so we're on the same page, because I don't often know from time to time what you people think an assault weapon is. Would you be able to define an assault weapon in specific terms?
And they can't do that.
Of course not.
I had somebody who asked me last weekend during a training session. They said, "What exactly is that?" This was a civilian training session. It was various levels of experience. So the spouse of one of the people who was coming, this was handgun. But one of the spouses came up and said, "Can you tell me what exactly is an assault weapon?" And I said, "There's no such thing as an assault weapon." That is a term. It's a name that's been given to a classification of firearms by the media in an attempt to draw a very quick understanding of what certain types of guns look like for a reference.
Bingo.
So that would be like saying, okay, well, so that's a red car. Okay, that's a descriptor. I'm giving you a descriptor to describe that vehicle. So that's basically what I'm doing with a. So she's like, and she was befuddled by this. She said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, okay, so could you tell me what an assault vehicle is?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I guess I don't understand." Then I said, "Well, then the same thing would apply to somebody who knows firearms." You say, I mean, listen, anything. The gun isn't of itself a tool. What you choose to do with that tool, I mean, anything could be an assault. You could have an assault baseball bat. You could have assault golf clubs. My mother, throughout my entire childhood, made assault meatloaf. I mean, I pick on her meatloaf relentlessly. But you get the point, though. I mean, I can use anything, and in instances where people don't have the ability to actually get a hold of firearms, they use other things in the perpetration of violence. And now it's gotten to the point, as an active shooter response instructor, we talk about active shooter events, but the term now is starting to change. You're starting to see more and more references to AAs, or active attacks, because what that's now doing is it's taking into account mass killings that have been conducted not only with firearms, but also with improvised explosive devices, knives, and vehicles.
Yeah. Well, rifles are used about less than 5% of the time of the time that handguns are used in any gun-related homicide, and also knives are used 7 times or something. I think it's close to 7 times more than rifles. So what are we really talking about here? And that term assault weapon or assault rifle, that really wasn't used in the public forum until Dianne Feinstein brought it in the 90s. You remember those pictures of her holding up the AR-15? Mm-hmm. That was brought into the conversation, and they use it all the time to scare the hell out of people that don't know any better. So that's what the stuff that I talk about. It's a terminology like assault weapon, gun violence, gun violence doesn't exist. It's human violence, and people don't see that. Wild West, all these terms that they use to scare people, and it becomes part of our conversation. I go to the range, and I hear guys talking about assault weapons and assault rifles, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's disturbing because that gets it infiltrates our normal society and our normal vocabulary, and that's how you change the minds of people. change the narrative, change the terminology, change the way people speak, and change the way people think about a topic, and you're going to change society pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, when you talk about the rifle, between 2000 and 2016, there were a total of, and this is FBI, DOJ, NIJ statistics, 242 active shooter. What would fit the definition of an active shooter? There were 242 occurrences in the United States. Of those, 56%, the most powerful weapon used was a handgun.
Sure.
In only 28% of the time, the rifle was the most powerful weapon used. The shotgun was most powerful weapon 14% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually, I'm sorry, 27%. 27% of the time, so roughly a quarter of the attacks, it's not the scary black rifle. It's not the AR-15 with the 30-round magazine. It's the guy who walks in there with an average handgun, with a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol, and again, has unrestricted access to victims and engages in aggressive, deadly behavior.
But the people who don't see this news, the people who don't understand this conversation and don't know these statistics will vote for Eric Swalwell because they don't know any better, and they'll listen to his nonsense and they'll believe it because they don't listen to guys like you, and they just don't have access to this type of facts and truth and statistics.
So, give me another example of what's one of the common ones. Of course, we know about the moral superiority. We talk about that a lot. What's one of the other common gotcha things that they try to use? Don't you support
Universal background checks? That's the question.
I love that one. Yeah.
Okay. So, and basically what I say is, if they worked, I would consider it, but they don't. 90% of criminals surveyed by the DOJ said that they avoid background checks for gun purchases. 95% of background check denials are initially false positives. So what does this mean? This means that background checks do nothing to stop the bad guys from buying guns, while 67,500 good people per year are denied their Second Amendment right, and every year it's made vulnerable to attacks because they can't protect themselves and their families. So I'll ask them, when they ask me, do you support background checks, how is this a good thing?
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, one of the things that I've said all the time is that and I never hear an anti-gunner talking about this. This is something that I absolutely think should occur. I think the NICS should be expanded in order to to use NICS, you have to be a licensed firearm dealer. I think that NICS should be opened up. If you want to do it, let's say I want to sell a gun to you in a private sale. I should have the option of being able to do a NICS without having to go to a dealer and spend, $25 or $30 for a transfer.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
I think, call up NICS and say, hey, listen, this is the person's name, date of birth, driver's license number. This is for a private firearms transaction. It's not a registration thing. And, they pay a fee. Okay, we're going to run your credit card, whatever, $10, $15, whatever the case may be. And then, you get you're not getting information specifically about that person's background. You're just getting a yes that you can sell this gun to the person or no. I think expanded NICS, and nobody's having that conversation either, but I think it would be a very, very simple thing, and with the fees that you could charge to have transactions gone through, I believe it would be minimally impactful. It may even be revenue neutral at that point. It may pay for itself.
Yeah, well, I see where you're going with that, and unfortunately, a lot of these states aren't implementing all the data that they should into the NICS system. So that's part of the problem. And then, even when these killers end up going through the background checks, and then they're found, killing people, shooting people. It just shows you right there that it's not really working right now. So let's, if we can fix that, great. But in the meantime, don't deny me, someone who's never had more than a speeding ticket, of my Second Amendment rights. That's the problem that I have with it.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at my clock here. We're rapidly coming up on the top of the hour here, which means I'm going to have to cut this short. But Dan, I'd love to get you back on again. The hour went by very, very quickly. Dan Wos, nationally recognized Second Amendment advocate and spokesperson. You can pick up his books on Amazon, by the way. Good Gun, Bad Guy: Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical, and the follow-up to that, Good Gun, Bad Guy 2: Destroying the Anti-Gun Narrative. I'll go ahead and I'll put links up on the WNTK Facebook page, the Amazon link over to Dan's books. Dan Wos, fantastic conversation. I certainly appreciate your time, and we'll make time for you again real soon.
Thanks so much, Keith. Looking forward to it.
All right, be well. Thank you. 9:54, you are listening to the Keith Hanson Show on 99.7 FM WNTK.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click that subscribe button down below and also the notification bell to keep updated on all my radio interviews, TV interviews, and the Dan Wos Destroys, where I analyze and tear apart the anti-gun media narrative. My books can be found at goodgunbadguy.net or goodgunbadguy.com. And don't forget, your Second Amendment, it's not a privilege, it's your right.